Last week we had AI generate some questions for us about men's opinions in relationships and their thoughts in relationships. So this week what we thought we'd do, I would have real intelligence instead of artificial intelligence. So today I'm joined by Sarah. Sarah, welcome back again.
Hi.
You've got some questions for me.
Off the back of your podcast last week where you had AI generated questions about what a woman would like to know a man's opinion on,
Woman. Okay.
I started having a think about questions that I might actually like a man's opinion on.
Okay.
So I thought I could ask you. You don't know what these questions are. So just your absolute honest answer straight up.
I'll be as honest as I can,
Like-
as always.
Even if you wouldn't say it to a woman's face.
Okay. Most stuff I'd say to a woman's face. Yeah, go on.
Okay, so what do you or men in general notice first when you meet a woman?
Initially, it would be an attraction in terms of how they look, not just in physical looks, but just their general look, about whether that's something that is attracted to the male. And obviously all guys go for sort of slightly different things. Some are like blonde, dark, tall, short, whatever it may be. But that would be the first thing that you would be drawn to as a man.
But you have said in the past that you don't have a particular type.
No,
So what do you think you would be first attracted to? A woman walking down the street?
it would just be how they look, how they're put together, basically. And that would be my sort of instinctive attraction, if you like, would be whether I found them attractive. Now, you're right, I have said before, I haven't got a type. So I'm not a blonde, dark, tall, short, whatever it may be. But there's something about someone that I find attractive, and I can't put my finger always what it is, but that would be the thing that I'm drawn to, that sort of X factor, whatever it may be.
So it's not like, oh, here comes a really good personality walking towards me.
No, because you're never going to know that, and the only way that, and I said this last week, the only way that you ever are attracted to people after meeting them is when you're in a situation where you're actually spending time with them. Now, for someone walking down the street, you're not going to stop everyone that comes along to find out whether they've got a sparkling personality. You're going to stop the ones and talk to the ones that, first of all, you are visually attracted to, because that is your first impression of someone, is always visual.
And I guess that works then with the dating apps as well. You're not sort of reading the bio, you're looking at the picture first
Absolutely.
and then read.
Yeah, absolutely. Because otherwise you'd be on there forever. In terms of, there are so many people on there, that you're only going to look at the bios of, if you look at the bios at all, which I didn't really do a great deal. I'll be honest, when I used them, it was always for me how a person looked, because people can write anything in their bio. They can be who they want to be in their bio. But if you're attracted to how they look and, a couple of things that they've said, you can get an idea of how they've written. Mind you, most stuff I would imagine now would all be AI generated anyway. So you're going to kind of read what people want you to read.
Okay. Do men really know within the first few dates whether they could fall in love with a woman?
No, I think you can have an idea in the first few days, because I've had it where, you fall head over heels in love, or what you think is love, on the first sort of meeting. And then 3-4 days later, you're like, yeah, no.
That's early.
No, but I think that's a lot of the time, that's the excitement, and it's about, getting those endorphins and the whole attraction and lust after someone initially. It takes a while to get to know someone, to even scratch the surface. So it normally takes sort of 3 months usually to start really even vaguely getting to know someone.
That leads very nicely into the next question, which is what makes a man lose interest in a woman that he's initially very attracted to? So you've had these couple of dates, or you think, oh, I could fall in love, I'm excited. What then prevents it from going forward?
Precisely what I just said. It takes sort of 3 months to get to know someone. So initially everyone is on their best behaviour. It's their sort of their side that they want to show. And then after sort of 2 or 3 months, everyone falls back into their normal habits of actually what they're more like as a person, and starts to relax a bit more. And, that's when more of the how they are in a relationship comes out, or how you are in a relationship. And that's when you can start to go, actually, maybe she's not for me, or maybe he's not for me. And I've had it both ways before. And that's usually what it is that you don't align with a lot of your morals, or how you are, or, how you act, or how you live even.
So it is kind of really, it is like physical attraction first. Then what doesn't sustain it is personality, lifestyle,
Lifestyle, I would say
you know,
lifestyle and
likes, dislike, like, well, the whole extra package above just, I think this person's attractive. I want to get to know them. You get to know them. They're still that attractive. Like they still look exactly the same. But the other stuff is then what causes someone to lose
yeah,
interest.
yeah. I think, because I give you an example. When you meet someone, first of all, you could be going out with them and have a few glasses of wine, and you think, "Oh, this is nice," and then, you know, they might come round to your house the following week, and you know, "Oh, should we open a bottle of wine?" Yeah, you think, "Okay, let's open, another bottle of wine." And then after you've been with 3 months, you realise that they're drinking every time they see you. They want a bottle of wine every night. Now, to some people, that's brilliant. To other people, it's like, I don't want to be drinking every night, but they're like, "This is what I normally do. This is how I relax, how I unwind." And that's when you start to find out that your lifestyle doesn't match up. Or it could be that, like me, let's go to the gym tonight. And I always want to sort of go as much as I can. And it might be for the other person, I don't want to do that. But then I don't always want to be with people that are like that as well. It's a weird balance, because then you can meet someone that does that and it doesn't bother you. So I don't know. To those first three questions, do you not find women are exactly the same? Because it seems to me that women portray this, "Oh, we're all about the personality," kind of thing.
I am about the personality.
Not first of all, surely.
I don't know. But I think, like I've said to you before, you get to know someone, they become so much more attractive than, say, someone who's just stereotypically good looking.
But you said but you get to know someone. So go back to when, 'cause obviously you were married for 10 years, but go back to that stage before then, when you were dating. Guy comes up to you at a club that you're not visually attractive at all. Do you think to myself, he could have a really good personality? I'm gonna date him for the next 2 or 3 months to find out.
I only ever dated people I'd been sort of introduced with through friends, sort of like in a social setting where you get to know someone quite quickly. So you sort of, they seem attractive,
Not buying
but
it.
as part of, no, you don't have to buy it.
So
But
you're sorry. So you're telling me you were never out in a bar where a guy came over, a good-looking guy, and just said, "Hey, listen, saw you across the bar, thought I'd come and say hi," and then you've dated him? No, not
I'm trying to think. I'm having to go a while back. I would have been in my late teens, in my early 20s.
no, exactly. But the same principles
Yeah,
apply.
no, I no, you're right. I do, but I think this is when I was a lot younger, that I would be out and I would see a sort of cute boy at university and think, I want to chat to them.
Okay. But the same principles apply, because you had that part of your life where you were married and you weren't in those environments. If you're not married and you're single, that's the same environment. You just get older doing it. So you're then in your late 20s, your early 30s and 40s. So all the people listening to this that are single, that they'll be doing the same thing. It's not always. If you get to know someone through work, you can definitely have those situations where, you don't think anything of a guy or a girl. And then, because you chat to them, you just get on with them. And then after a while, you think, actually, I'm finding them quite attractive now, because you've had the time to get to know them.
Yeah.
But when you're meeting on dating sites or in a bar, wherever it may be, you're not afforded those luxuries of sort of, "Oh, I'm going to get to know you, even though I don't fancy you whatsoever at all." You know,
I don't know. And I might be wrong that I think women are slightly different, but my only ever experience of dating sites was when I was in my mid 20s. And it wasn't how they looked. It would be for me, and maybe it's because I like reading. Like I would read the bit they'd written about them. Like I'd cross-reference like interests. Like I'd tick my boxes and see which boxes sort of married up. And then I'd look and I think, yeah, they look nice. They look like someone I might want to get to know, but it wasn't going, that guy's really hot. I don't care what he's written here. I want to meet that person.
So I'm going to guess you wasn't on dating sites for very long, was you?
No?
No, that's why. Because when you first go on dating sites, you do sort of walk in thinking, this is simple. You're going to have people on there that want to meet, want to meet you. You're going to look at what they say and all that, and that seems really great. And everyone's like that when they first go on dating sites for like the first 2 months, and then you start to realize what actually they're like, and it becomes endless the conversations that you're having all the time, and in the end, you have to sort out how to get through all the likes that you may have or all the people that come up because you haven't got time to read every single bio and then have a conversation with every single one. And I'm not saying it's like when I was on there, it was hundreds, but even if it's three or four, that's 2.5 hours of your life every night gone out the window. You've got to find a way of, when you're on them, when you was on them more, or when I was on them more, of like going by sort of like almost like a quick referencing, you know?
Quick catalogue.
It is because you just haven't, you haven't got time to do it. You just haven't.
Okay.
So of reading all the bios, and that's why I say like you start off that way, but I'm sure if you was on them for longer, you would have found that after a while you wouldn't have read like all the bios of all the guys that came up.
But I would filter it out. So I would put in like I'm looking for someone who's, say, for example, I'm just trying to think back to mine. I probably had university educated as one of my sort of like tick boxes. So that
Okay.
would, so I would narrow the pool that way.
Yeah, they don't work either. I used to narrow the pool by saying, what's the difference you're willing to travel? 10 miles. I'll get people in Surrey. And don't get me wrong, I travelled there in the
You
end.
did travel.
I did travel there in the end. That wasn't sort of 10, and also the filters, you'll put things like non-smoker. They smoke.
Well, I get people will probably lie when they tick a box. Yeah.
No, they were being honest, the people on there, but the actual platform itself would just throw you people because it was like, well, here's another one, here's another one, here's another one, because it's got, it's got to keep you on there and keep you interested. So the filter bit didn't always work anyway. That was very sort of hit and miss.
What's the biggest lie that men tell women when they're dating?
What do you mean? Like, so you met someone you're dating?
A typical lie. You've mentioned one before when you say, what's your number? I always assume that a man's lying if you ask when they answer that, sorry. But what is the kind of lie that a man would tell a woman?
Might be, I think the number is one because you don't want to sort of kill yourself before you even start. You want someone to get to know you and give you a chance, let them see your personality. If you come out with like 712, I'm not sure how many women are staying around that long.
But you've got to assume once a guy has gotten to a certain age that they've probably been with sort of a plethora of women.
Do the math.
And there's going to be
Do the math.
the number's going to be larger. And maybe you might worry if someone's gotten to say their mid-50s, 60s, and the number's small.
Yeah.
How do you pitch that number?
I think so. I mean, like I said, like just now, if you did the math, if someone was, you would expect that someone would at least have relations 3 a year. I don't think 3 in a year sounds a lot. That's 1 every 4 months, right? And if they've been single 10 years, that's 30 straight away. So if they're giving you a number of like, 8, then it's like, so you've been single 10 years, 8 people. I mean, could happen, don't get me wrong, but, sometimes the numbers will be high. I think a lot of people will lie initially about their situation.
Okay.
I think that would be a big one.
What do you mean, like, especially if it's complicated?
Yeah, and I'd always say everyone's situation is complicated. If your situation after the age of 28, 29 is not complicated, then there's probably something wrong with you in the first place anyway. But yeah, most relationships as you get into your 30s, there'll always be a complication. To the stage of where I was meeting people in the end. And if I met a girl and say, so, what's your situation? And they'd say, it's complicated. I'd be like, isn't everyone's? It was a standard answer because everyone's come out of something, just finished with something, got a jealous ex-boyfriend, jealous husband, going through divorce, got kids, not living at home, whatever it may be. everyone's situation is complicated. And I think sometimes it's it's one of those lies that you do to give yourself a chance.
Yeah.
Because I don't think meeting up with a girl, and then saying, "So, what's your situation?" Say, "Well, currently I'm living at home with my mum, and I
Fresh out of rehab.
fresh out of rehab. I haven't got any money, just lost my." Sometimes you do want to think, I want this person to get to know me.
The personality.
Yeah, if you like. Yeah, I want this person to get to know me so that we can maybe have a chance of going forward, and then dump me in 3 months' time. And maybe this guy wants to get his numbers up a little bit. I don't know. So you want to be given a fair chance. And I think we're all very quick to judge a situation, because we live in a world of icks and red flags now, don't we? Where, everyone goes, "Oh, that's an ick and that's a red flag." And, and
So you want someone to be emotionally invested before you say, I went to prison.
yeah,
Not for a bad crime.
no, not for a bad crime. It wasn't my fault.
Little crime.
I only got called the once. Yeah, no, I do, I think.
Because I'd be honest, if I went on a date with a guy and we sat down and, we've ordered food and he goes, "Oh, I'm this time last year I was in prison." I'm probably not going on another date.
Save for the food, though.
Yes, because I'm polite. So I'm not like, I would be like uncomfortable just exiting at that point.
I guess that's the nice thing about dating sites, actually, that sometimes, say you were that guy or person that had something that is going to put people off. What you can do straight away on a dating site is, rather than go, "Do you know what? Like, I'm just going to get this out in the open straight away. I've been in prison, or whatever it may be. I still live at home." So then people have the opportunity to not pay any attention to you without you knowing. So it's not affecting your ego, because it can take a battering when you're dating because of those things. I think for men probably, like you say, women are different. Men probably think the reverse, in thinking, right, well, she obviously finds me attractive because she's here. So if she's here and finds me attractive, I want her to like me rather than dislike my situation. So I'm gonna withhold certain aspects of the truth initially, and then drip feed them in over the next few dates.
Yeah. So if I'd spent 6 months with prison guy and I got, I met his family, we had similar interests. I was, physically attracted to him. He'd started talking about like his feelings and his hopes and his dreams and all of that. And we'd, been intimate. And then he goes, "Listen, something happened.
Yeah.
I haven't told you, before. I wanted to feel safe to tell you." And then he told me he'd had, some time in prison, for not like a serious crime. At that point, I'm probably less inclined to go,
No, exactly. Sorry, I thought you was going to say, you'd be out.
no, because, everyone's got a past.
Yeah, exactly. And you'd be like, "Where are you at now?"
Right now, it's never going to happen again. What have we learned?
No, exactly. So, but if that same guy would have told you that first night at dinner,
Out after dinner.
yeah, exactly. So I think that would be the biggest thing. And I think women are the same. I do with that. I think women can sort of bend their situation slightly to what they are in.
Yeah, you don't give everything straight away.
No, exactly. And then sometimes that's to protect yourself as well. Because, like I've said on the previous podcast, one of the things you don't want to do is turn up for dinner talking about all your past, because it's like a bit like when all we've done was spoke about his ex-girlfriend all night, or his dog that had died like 2 years ago. I don't know. But yeah, no. So I think that would be the biggest thing.
What is the biggest lie that women tell themselves about men? And I've got some ideas about this one.
A lie so something that a woman believes about men.
Yeah, they tell themselves a lie about men. I can offer some up if you're not sure.
Yeah, I think, yeah, please.
So I've obviously been through breakups. I've been in, groups of girlfriends who have gone through breakups, problems in marriages, problems in relationships. And I feel like women naturally want to sort of support their friend or sister or, whatever. And they will say things along the lines of like, "He wasn't emotionally ready. You were too much for him. He was, he was frightened by your success. You sort of think that men have put a lot more thought into why they would maybe back away or why they would break up with someone, that sort of highlights the positives of a woman when maybe sometimes it might simply be just didn't fancy you anymore. I wouldn't say it to a friend, why do you think he left me? Because you put on a bit of weight.
You moan.
You know,
You do a lot of
you
moaning.
complain a lot. Like,
Yeah.
so I think that women think men are a lot deeper than possibly they are, or that they put a lot more thought into stuff than they do.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I would agree. I don't think when people say they're not emotionally ready, the truth of it really is they're just not emotionally ready for you, like because they don't want to be. It's not that they like. Oh, I'm not over my past yet. I need to get over that. And there can be aspects of that, but the right person will make you think that your past has happened for precisely that reason for them.
Yeah.
So you met this person. So I think men aren't that deep in their thinking. I think sometimes there are deeper meanings behind it for men, but they just wouldn't know what they are because they don't spend that long thinking about it.
Whereas as a woman, I sometimes, when I've been broken up with or, going through something difficult, have thought that the man has been sat there really thinking this through.
Listen, I think there's always a chance that they might have done that as well.
Chance.
No, there is. I don't think it's something that they wouldn't make a decision lightly. It's probably something that they have thought about. So I don't think it's that side of it so much. But I think when people want to label everything, and sometimes it's just that it's just not that into you.
Well, that's one of the most refreshing things. It was from Sex and the City, wasn't it? I think it was Berger says to Miranda, he's just not that into you.
Yeah.
And everyone's horrified at his honesty, but actually it was just the most simple thing you could say. And it's okay if someone just doesn't like you because you're not going to like everyone.
Yeah, I think sometimes I always said "God, maybe I'm not in like enough for people, and that's not in a bad way. But sometimes you're not enough for people. No, it's not a bad thing. I think it's fine, and then that happened a few times where whatever you are, if that's not for someone, there's not a lot you can do about it. And it's just whether it's not enough for them, it could be more than enough for another person. It's just not enough for them. So, and that's fine.
I think that's age and maturity getting to that point, though, isn't it? I don't think that's something you kind of, oh, I didn't feel in my 20s, certainly.
I think I think I don't know if it's age and maturity or just experience of having it enough. Do you know? I think if you go through a breakup that's bad enough, you come through the other side. I think just with breakups in your 20s, they were a lot easier because there was just an abundance of people around. Your pool that you were fishing in was huge. And there were so many single people because it was and even if they were with people, they wasn't with people. It's not like people were everyone was married when you were 22, 23. They could be dating someone, but if they saw someone else they wanted to date more, they normally would.
Okay, hold on. On that note, I'm going to skip a few questions and go to, can a man be deeply in love with a woman and still cheat?
I am thinking about it. I
Carefully.
am thinking carefully. Yeah, I think so.
Oh, I was hoping you wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
Why?
What? Why can they?
Yeah.
I
I
think
don't mean
some.
physically how. I mean,
Well, no, because I think sometimes it is a physical thing that men desire. I think as they get older, less likely because I think it's more when you're younger, it's something. I think when you get older, you weigh up consequences a lot more than you do when you're younger. It's a bit like when I worry about falling over now because it bloody hurts when I play football. When I was in my 20s, I never gave it a second thought. Because it's just like, you fall down, you get up. And I think it's that same analogy, bear with me. It's the same analogy for me that, as you get older, you're just aware that things hurt a lot more and there's bigger consequences to it. So what you're risking for, whatever it is, maybe you still might have the same thoughts. You still might think that might be a nice experience, but you're like, yeah, but that nice experience is going to cost me this and it's going to cost me that. And not in terms of monetary wise, but in terms of just what you stand to lose. Whereas early in your 20s, I don't think you do that.
Okay, it doesn't really answer the question fully, though. So you think you could be in love with someone and still cheat on them, or a man could be deeply in love and still capable of cheating?
I'd like to think I wouldn't be able to do that. I mean, I think most guys would give the same answer. I think there's people that are able to do that. And I don't think that's just men. I think that's women as well. Because listen, these guys that are all cheating, they're all, unless everyone is gay that is cheating, they're cheating with women. And not all of these women are single because the math doesn't add up. There's not an abundance of single women out there that these guys are all cheating with. It is also married women as well, or women that are in relationships as well that do it. So it works both ways.
All right.
And also, I think, is as women get older and men get older, their sexual appetite can lessen. Doesn't in everyone, but it can. So it might be the man not giving that woman that sexual connection that she wants, and she might then think, okay, well, I love you, and I want to be, but I need to feel wanted. So I'll get that from somewhere else.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, I quote a lot of sort of Facebook community groups chatting about the lack of sex in relationships to you, and people going, being happily married or being in, love with their partner and saying, but we haven't had sex in a year. They're not saying they're going off to cheat. So I can kind of see what you're saying.
Yeah, so I think it's not ideal, obviously, but I think people can do it, definitely.
So where do you think the level of cheating like begins though? I'm always curious about a man's opinion on this one. Is it sex? Is it kissing? Is it texting? Is it liking people's
I think any
pictures?
I think it's no, I think it's like once it becomes physical.
So you don't think emotional cheating is as bad?
It depends, it depends on the context of it. If it's like text messages,
Like, yeah, sexting.
a sexting, yeah, but that's different to flirty text messages, let's say. Say you were getting flirty text messages off of someone, I wouldn't say that's necessarily cheating as such. It's not great. I'm not saying, we all should be doing it, but it's not physical at that stage. I think it's the moment people act upon things.
Yeah, I think it's too big a gray area for me about what, like, where it's the tipping point where it becomes.
Once you do something about it.
But could that be replied to the text?
No, because some people reply because they're not, they don't want to seem to be rude but at the same time, so let me ask you this. Say like you was getting texts from someone
Okay.
and you were replying, but in your head, you was thinking,
Am I in a relationship at this point?
you're in a relationship,
Okay.
yeah. Or I don't think whether you're in a relationship, so much for this question matters. But so if you're getting sort of flirty text messages from someone and then you're replying to them in your head in a very polite way, thinking, well, I'm not flirting back with him, but you are replying, is that not the same? Because he's flirting with you.
But some people are just naturally flirty too.
That's not an answer to my question.
It's not an
I literally said the same answer to you, and you said, that's what I'm saying. But at what stage does it become different?
I think that if you were to play it back in reverse to someone you were with, and that makes you feel uncomfortable, then you probably shouldn't be doing it. So if I could say in that scenario, right? I'm in a relationship, someone sending me messages, they're flirtatious in nature, and I'm replying to be polite. If the person I was with was doing that same thing and I thought that would make me feel uncomfortable, then I probably shouldn't be doing it. I'm starting to cross the line there, I think.
Yeah, I think it depends. The security of the relationship, one in the first place, whether the other, because I'm very much like, if the girl is replying, I think, fine, do what you want, but I would, and the reason I think like that is because I do think, do you know what? If you're going to do something about it, you're going to do something about it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to stop that, whether you're replying or not. But also at the same time, it's good for people's ego sometimes. I think, sometimes it's harmless flirting. It's only when people start acting upon it that, it actually becomes more of an issue.
Have you ever lost interest in a woman if she became too available?
No, I've only lost interest in people. I think that whole thing that, like, they're too needy, you've just gone off them anyway.
Yeah.
Because if it's someone that you really like, you want them to be available for you and, be more available. And you don't see it. But once you're going off someone, them wanting to be with you, you just might notice it more, like a sudden cough that they've always had, but you just start to notice it. That you think, oh God, it drives me on the wall.
'Cause I was wondering about this off the back of the saying, play hard to get. Does that actually work on men?
I think for some guys it does, yeah, 100%. But and women as well. I think it goes the same way. I think you've got to be a certain sort of character to do the treat 'em mean, keep 'em keen.
Oh, that's the other one. Yeah. Treat him
Yeah,
mean, keep him keen, play hard to get. This is all sort of like terrible advice we were given when we were a lot younger.
I think it's more about some people, if they can't have what they want it more sometimes. But also you've got. I've always found that you normally are that way with girls that you're not that bothered about, or guys that you're not that bothered about. Like you're very unavailable because you don't want to be available. As soon as you meet someone that you really like, you try harder. You don't. Very seldom have I met guys that really, really like someone, but they go, "Do you know what? I'll keep me." You might do to a certain extent in terms of, I won't ring them straight away.
Yeah.
I'll leave it a day. But then you get to the stage where you think, I just know what, if I like them, I'm going to call them. And if they don't like that, they're probably not the right person for you in the first place. You probably need to meet someone who does the same to you, and so you'll, live happily ever after, playing hard to get.
Yeah. I kind of get what you're saying there. I just think that as women, and I might be wrong here, there is an element of if a man thinks he can have you whenever he wants, or that you're just waiting around for them to phone up or to be free, that they become less desirable.
Yeah, but I also think that gives you an idea. If, relationships, I think, are all about balance. If someone's got too much control in the relationship, it doesn't work. So, from the example that you just gave, that to me would sound like the girl likes the guy a lot more than the guy likes the girl. And then, yeah, then it is hard to sort of, and I think sometimes if you're in that situation, give as much as you're getting. If you're not getting anything back off of them, then you sort of almost need to start pulling away from them. And then you might find that they want you more, and then you can give a little bit more if they're giving a bit more.
Okay. So, as a mild, slightly older gentleman,
Thank you.
I was trying to think of a way of like,
An old 40-year-old, you mean?
as someone who's
Okay, let's move on.
on the other side of 40
Yeah,
plus 10 years,
yeah. And then in the plus 10 years, yeah, go on. Yeah.
does marriage become more or less appealing to a man?
I don't know. Neither, I think. I think that depends upon the person. I think some guys want to get married. I think if you're with someone that wants to get married, you're more likely to do it to keep them happy. But if you meet someone that doesn't, I don't think you'll be overly fussed either.
Would you ever get married just to keep someone happy?
I think so. Maybe if it's someone that I wanted to be with, yeah.
How important is sex to a man once he's emotionally invested in a woman? So you're in love with the woman. How important is sex at that point
To me, it's still really important.
versus the beginning of a relationship?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think men are sexual creatures, most of them. But you've got to make an effort for each other. You've got to make, I think you still got to be attractive to each other. You've still got to fancy the person, and that does require effort. Your example earlier on, if people suddenly put on a load of weight, they may not be as attractive to the other person as they were before. And then that that may not change their love for each other, but it definitely changes your sexual attraction to them because you're no longer visually attracted. Which part? Our
You just think that there's sort of like a level you've got to maintain because there is that element of people get into relationships and they go, I can relax a bit now. Because it's not always easy to, some days you want to wake up in the morning and you don't want to do your hair, put on makeup, wear something cute. You want to be in sweatpants and
Absolutely, but
t-shirt with your hair scraped up on top of your head and
yeah, but you know, you can still do all of that and look good doing it to the other person.
okay.
But if you sort of suddenly, if the guy sort of, you know, gets up and slobbers around all day and you know, he puts on 7 or 8 stone and then just sits on his backside watching TV, drinking lager, you may not find him as attractive as you used to.
Okay, here's a good question for you then. Emotional attraction or physical attraction? Because what you've just described there, you know, a guy putting on 7 or 8 stone or whatever, you know, drinking lager, slobbing about the house, like I would say that's like someone who's physically unappealing. But you could still have someone who works out in the gym, looks after themselves, maintains a great physique, dresses well, you know, and they start talking to you pretty poorly.
Yeah.
Sort of the lack of respect over time degrades because they're not putting in that effort to let you know you're still really important to them, that they still value your opinion, that they still care about your feelings. So they might be physically gorgeous, but emotionally at that point, that's when I would start to find someone probably more unattractive.
But I think both are ingredients in the relationship, and I think you need both. Really, I think you need some emotional attraction and also physical attraction as well.
'Cause someone could look great, but if they're being horrible to you, I don't want them to touch me.
No, you need both of those ingredients. I think you need to be physically attractive and emotionally attractive because if you're not emotionally attracted to them and you dislike the person, you'll go off them physically anyway. You'll no longer see what you used to see. And sometimes as well, you know, it works the other way as well. They can be, you know, you really fancy them emotionally, but you think, I don't want to sleep with them because I just you know, just not attracted to them. So I think you need both to work. I think, you know, both are part of a successful relationship,
That was the point I was just getting to.
which was what?
Both were important. Whereas I think initially you were answering it very much from a physical attraction.
Because I think initially for men, that is the main drive. I think, and I do think so for women as well. As much as women will all say it's not, you know, it is. It really is. It is.
Just saying it is doesn't make it.
But
It
in my
is.
example, how many times when you were, you know, did you go up to a guy in a bar that you didn't fancy?
I don't think I fancy someone just looking at them straight off the bat.
Right, but you're giving me the same example all the time.
So I just watched that TV series Off Campus, right? The lead character in it, just if he was stood right in front of me, I hadn't seen him, like, he was just in a bar,
Yeah.
I wouldn't go, "That's an attractive guy." Having then watched the entire series, he's an exceptionally attractive guy.
No, the character he plays
No,
is
but yeah, but that's also the character looks the way he looks. Because 'Cause I'm trying to think of people that I've never met that I've gone, "Well, I think they're attractive." Ryan Gosling, for example, right?
yeah,
But
very attractive.
very attractive.
He is.
He is. But, you know, I haven't gotten to know him, but I've seen him sort of like acting and in interviews and all that kind of thing, and he's become, like, so attractive.
Yeah, I think we should take the make believe aspect out of this conversation away because, again, I know what you mean, but you are attracted to the character they're portraying. But what you're always attracted to is how they look.
Yes.
And they look, and that's what's real. That's what they actually look like. I mean, Ryan Gosling, I'm sure he looks like a lovely guy, but if he was a total arsehole, you know, he's
It might make an exception for Ryan Gosling.
there we go. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. But my point is that you're, you know, the kind of look that you're attracted to is different. Women will say, oh, yeah, the guys they're talking about, they're always attracted to them visually. They're not going up to complete unattractive people, let's say.
Okay, we can slightly disagree on this because I just don't think I might just not be the person who goes up to someone in a bar and or just sees someone on the street and goes, I'm attracted to them. I think I can say they're an attractive person, but feeling that sort of like I fancy them just doesn't come from just looking at someone.
Oh, but they're the person, like, so if you go into a bar full of people and you've got one of those guys you think they're attractive, and then the other 9 you don't, which one are you going to speak to?
Fair enough. Next question.
Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, I like this one because I'm sort of slightly in the older dating bracket now. What are the attractive things about dating an older woman?
I would love to say less drama, but that's not always the case. I think they just probably know themselves a bit more, just more experience about things, more, what's the right word?
I think older women are sexier now than they ever have been.
I definitely agree with that. I think they're more established
Yeah.
as a person. Yeah, I think that, but I also think that women are, and men are beginning to realize in later life, you need to stay attractive because you can.
Yeah. And you want to.
And you want to because you want to feel attracted to the everyone else, so it makes you feel good, and you want to feel good yourself when you get ready.
I remember when I was younger, I would sort of think about maybe 40. It was sort of like a typical age to fixate on. God, when you get to 40, like you're done. You know, it was the Golden Girls were the ones on TV, and it's sort
Yeah,
of like big glasses, curly, graying hair. And then as I got closer to 40, I was like, I'm not that.
no,
I'm not going to be that. So I sort of, you know, gone down a different path. But I think that lots of women in their 40s and 50s are so gorgeous now. I think it helps that women tend to have their own careers. They, earn, you know, not quite equal to a man in the same position, but they're quite often, financially independent. They can go and the idea of, say, Botox or plastic
I
surgery,
was
it's,
about to
it's
say,
not as taboo as it used to be. The amount of products that are available now for women. I think men tend to look like they're aging better just naturally, the sort of silver fox kind of, you know.
yeah, I think in terms of sort of, women can get a lot of help, if you like, now. In terms of Botox, I think the difference between men and women is men, yes, they do age better, but women wear young better. When I see, so if you see a girl who's had a facelift, Botox, boobs done, she can look great. I think if you see a guy that's had a load of work done, it just never looks right. I think women wear younger better than men do, but men age better.
And speaking of younger, I seem to be hearing a lot more about how younger men are increasingly attracted to women in their 40s.
And why do you think that
50s.
is?
So you said, less drama. I think women do come with less drama at this age. I think that the tolerance for drama versus, say, someone in their 20s.
It's not that.
Okay, well, what is it then? Wise one.
Well, I will give you it's my opinion.
Okay.
It's not, because if they're younger, what are they going to be attracted to? The first thing, like I've been saying,
Looks.
visually, they're going to be visually attracted to people. And I think, the whole MILF kind of movement that's gone along, and for younger guys as well, it has become a bit of a fantasy as well, but it's a realizable fantasy now because, women in their 40s, is Halle Berry in her is, they still look desirable. So because they're the first thing with most guys, especially younger guys, is visual. If you still look good in your 40s, of course they're going to be attracted to you still because you've looked after yourself. And, you've had, Botox, whatever it may be, boob jobs now, but, whatever it may be, they're still going to, they are going to be attracted to you. It's not so much of the less drama, all of that. They might,
I think that helps because I do think that there's a self assuredness of women in later ages that is different to, say, someone who I know that I don't get as worked up about stuff now that I did when I was in my 20s. I don't cry about the same stuff now that I would cry about in my 20s. That sort of level of like maybe immature drama is definitely gone.
absolutely, and it will go down, I think, and again, this is just our opinions, but I think it will go down exactly the same format as we've been saying all along. You're first attracted to looks, and then you're attracted to personality. So if a guy sees a good-looking woman in a bar, and he goes up, starts chatting to her, "Hey, okay, blah blah blah." Yeah, oh, how old are you? And the woman goes, "Well, I'm 43." He's going to think, "Well, okay, all right, fine. I still fancy her." And then she starts talking, and he's pretty like, "Well, this is a breath of fresh air." She's offered to buy me a drink, which he's probably never had before, talking to 20-year-olds. Last question.
The absolute last question at the moment. If a woman asks, which I think is quite a typical question, where is this relationship going? What goes through a man's head then?
He just probably thinks, "Where is this relationship going?" Um, yeah, I think it will just depend upon what he wants. But like I went over this last week actually in the podcast, and I just said, you know, if the guy repeats the question back to you, what are you gonna like say? If you be the girl,
Okay, where is this relationship going?
where would you like it to go? You you've got to know what you want.
I'm curious about how you feel at this point in time.
I'm feeling good. How are you feeling? Do you know what I mean? Just repeat the question back to people. I think you need to know what you want in the first place. And that's probably talking about, where you're seeing the game. But a caveat to that, I would just be prepared for sometimes asking that question can bring it to an end.
I was literally just about to say, do you need to, when asking a question like that, be prepared that someone might say, I'm happy dating, but I don't see it being anything serious?
But maybe but also maybe that's as much as they want. That may be serious to them is that, well, we're dating. I'm not seeing anyone else. You're not seeing anyone else. I see you a couple of times a week or when, whatever your routine is that you have. That to me, that's serious. So you've got to have an idea of what you want out of it in the first place and just be prepared to think, right, if I'm not getting more than this, I'm out because I want more, and be prepared for it to end if that conversation happens.
Is it the kind of thing that a man asks a woman too?
Yeah, no, I know one of my friends has had that same conversation within the last few months. Um, And like I just said, that he came to an end because of that. He wanted them to live together and do more together. And she was like, no, this is as much as I want. And he was like, well, okay, well, if that's not going to happen, that's what I want to do. And then he stepped away from it. And, sometimes you can regret that decision, or maybe you can meet someone that wants that as well. But yeah, it just depends.
So it seems like it's a good proactive question to do in a relationship, to ask in a relationship.
As long as you're not happy. If you're not happy with where you are, that would be the thing that I would say is, if you're happy where things are, also ask yourself, why do I want more? And also how you ask it. I wouldn't say, you know, where are we going in this relationship? Just maybe say, do you think in like a year's time we're going to still be where we are, or would you like to maybe look to get, a bit more? So it's not a definite like, where are we? If it doesn't match up, we need to break up.
Thank you, Elliot.
You're very welcome. Guys, thank you for joining us on 50 Shades of Grey. Really hope you've enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe and follow on 50 Shades of Grey. We'll catch up and take care. See you soon. Bye bye.